All right, guys. We're back with another symposium. Today, we got the Hapa Buddies, as well as the whole YouTube crowd joining in today, and some exciting stuff ready for you guys. Everything is going to be in English today. Typically, when I do my YouTube videos, I'll mix English and Japanese, but to all of you guys watching YouTube today, this is going to be all in English. So hopefully you guys can keep up. Before we get started, I just want to introduce our three amazing teachers. We'll start with Danny, who is on the top left on my screen. Danny, go ahead and maybe quickly introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm from Canada, originally from Vancouver, and now I'm in Montreal. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. And I've been teaching for almost 10 years, but on Cafe Talk for about 6, I think.
And next up, we have Chris. Chris?
Sure. I am from Boston, and I currently live in the Washington, D.C. area. I have been teaching for over 10 years, but I have been on Cafe Talk for 7 months. So I'm really excited.
And last but not least, we got Steve.
Hello, I'm from Kansas City area right now. I taught English for 9 years in Japan, but then took 13 years off for another job. And now since April, I've been teaching English again at Cafe Talk.
Excellent. So as you guys can see, we have 3 teachers from Cafe Talk. They've all been teaching English for a really, really long time. And the topic for today, guys, I picked out a couple of sentences that I see a lot of my Japanese students use. I wouldn't say they're mistakes, but I guess it can sound a little bit more quote unquote natural. But the reason we're doing this today is because how you define natural, I guess, depends on where you come from too, right? I mean, I live in Los Angeles, and maybe I might think the way, the sentences are written might sound unnatural to me, but I don't know, maybe someone from Boston like Chris, or, if you're in Kansas, it actually just might sound like normal English. So I thought today would be a great time to have, people from all over the United States and, can't forget about Canada as well, and see what you guys think about these sentences. And, to everybody watching the YouTube channel today, they have no idea what these sentences are. So everything is going to be off the top of their heads.
A game. Yes.
It's going to be a game, guys. Okay, are you guys ready to do this?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I have a sentence written down on this board here. I already have the first one written down. I will show it to you guys, and I will just randomly pick one of you guys to tell me if you think it's first, I guess if it's right or wrong, and second, if you think it sounds natural or not, and third, if how you would say it if you were, let's say, hanging out with your friends or something like that. Okay.
Woo!
Here we go. The very first one. I went to the train station by foot. I went to the train station by foot. So this is something that I actually hear quite a bit. Let's go with Chris. Chris, what do you think about this sentence right here?
Sorry, I have something in my throat, so I might need a glass of water. Just a heads up. But for me, by foot feels so dramatic in a way that you expect to hear in storytelling, in a movie, usually some sort of fairy tale in my experience. By foot, I also expect to hear on horseback. So I expect to see something about a journey or a very old kind of transportation. So for me, I would say that sentence is, I walked to the station.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I wouldn't say by foot, unless I really did go on a big journey. Yeah. Excuse me.
And just a question. Sorry, am I allowed to just go on
yes,
to what you said?
For it. Yep.
Like also, I feel like on foot sounds even better. Like if you're talking about like fantasy or something, like how the hobbits, they all went on foot. Like I think on foot sounds a little more natural too on top of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, talking about the hobbits in a story, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Bless that journey. Thank you, everyone. Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, Dania, what do you think? How would you use this by foot or on foot, or is there another way you would say this for?
Oh, I would say it exactly like Chris. I walked to the train station. That's more efficient. It's like subject, verb, where did you go? Like to the prepositional phrase. That's how I would do it.
Gotcha. And you know, I don't want to make fun of Kansas or anything like that, but how about people in Kansas? Do you guys use the word by foot, on foot?
We would say if we had to say use foot in the sentence, we'd say on foot. But
On foot.
I personally would just walk to the station.
Okay. Well, just kind of similar on this. So, you know, by foot or on foot, something similar along to these lines. I guess you could, you know, I also hear I went to the train station by car. I went to Japan by airplane or something like that. Part of the reason why this sentence happens the way it is, especially with Japanese students, is it's the direct translation of why this sentence is structured. So let's say, for example, instead of by foot, it was by car. Would that sound natural to you guys? Or would you, let's say, for example, say I drove to the train station instead of saying I went to the train station by car?
Yeah, I drove for sure. Yeah.
And same by plane.
I flew. Yeah.
Right.
We like our verbs to be really specific, right? Like I notice a lot of students, they'll use like a have verb or a to verb, and then they'll add the other verb after, where it's like you can just pick the most appropriate verb right after the subject.
All right. Okay. So I think we all agree on that. It's not wrong, I guess, but it's always better just to bring that verb right in the front. Okay. Here's the next one. I think we might have a little bit of a debate right here.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Let's see. Okay, I'm going to give you the situation here. All right. So the situation or the scenario is this. Your friend, let's just go back in time. Let's say like 2 years ago, it's a COVID-free world, okay? You could travel anywhere you want. There's no coronavirus. Anyone's free to go wherever they want because they're not going to catch the virus. And your friend tells you, you know what, I'm actually going to Hawaii tomorrow. I'm going to be out there for a couple of weeks on vacation, you know, with my family. And let's say, for example, your response to that is this. I envy you. I envy you. Now, okay, you know what? Before I even say anything, let's go with Steve on this one. I envy you. Would you say this? Is this right? Is this wrong? Is there another way you would say it? How do you feel when you hear this?
I personally wouldn't say it, but I've heard it, and I wouldn't say it's wrong. If it was me, I'd say I'm jealous or instead of envy. But so using an adjective to describe how I'm feeling rather than a verb. But I've heard someone say something like this. I wouldn't say it's wrong. I just personally wouldn't say that.
How about then, like, I'm envious of you?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's not wrong. It's just too formal sounding for me.
How about you, Danny?
I agree. And if you want to go like really girly slang, like jelly, like you're talking to like a younger person. But yeah, I'm jealous. Oh, so jealous. But I envy. Yeah, it's not wrong at all. But I agree with Steve.
And what about you, Chris?
So grammatically, envy is actually correct. The problem is most Americans, we don't use it that way. We use jealous for both situations. I want what you have and I don't have. I want what I have, but you're trying to take. We use jealous for both. And envy is actually when you don't have something that someone else has. So as a Spanish learner, I make this mistake all the time. I say jealous for everything. But in Spanish, they separate I imagine the same way that happens in Japanese, where they categorize it according to envy and jealousy. So in American English, at least, and it sounds like in Canadian English too, we don't differentiate.
I don't think most people now even know the difference, to be honest. Like, I don't think they know. Seriously, I think it's one of those things where it like there's a linguistic term for it, but Chris, you might know it, when like a word just changes meaning.
We call that language change or language shift. So I don't know the exact term for when it does change. But
I think it's there right now. Like, most people, if you ask what's the difference, they won't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because, you know, like, same for me, like when I hear the word jealousy, right? It's just such a strong emotional word, right? When I think about jealousy, I just really associate the word with something very negative, right? You are, and yet, you know, in everyday conversation, you know, like the way you guys are like talking about the language shift, I guess there are two types of ways we use the word jealous, right? And in Japan, you know, jealous is taught as quote unquote the jealousy, where you are kind of, you have like that negative feeling towards somebody because they have something that you don't have, kind of thing. But yeah, I think it seems like we all kind of agree that in those types of situations where it's not like, you know, you're upset or you want something bad to happen to the other person in Hawaii. You're just happy for them that they're going to Hawaii, and you wish that you can go
exactly
there,
that's
right?
Like if I was to say I'm jealous, I would probably say that even if I didn't want to go to Hawaii. I'm saying it to make the other person feel good about what they're doing. So it's kind of like a compliment to them that, you know, go enjoy your trip, enjoy yourself.
And maybe it's the way you say it too. I am jealous of you.
Yeah, you enjoy it. Over emote.
Different story. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's something we all agree on. It's not wrong, but typically Americans in those kind of situations would say, I'm jealous. Okay, let's keep this thing going then. Let's go with this one here. How about this? I'm going to write it down.
Suspenseful.
Oh, this is a longer sentence here. All right. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Okay. Here's a sentence. I want to challenge a marathon this year. I want to challenge a marathon this year. I think we'll go with Danny on this one. What are your thoughts on this sentence?
Yeah, it's like challenging is like kind of directed toward the wrong thing, because you basically want to challenge yourself, right? So you're not challenging the marathon. So no, that sounds really unnatural. I would say I want to do a marathon to challenge myself, perhaps. I would probably say it that way.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
I've heard this a lot with the TOEIC exam and the TOEFL. I'm going to challenge the TOEIC. And when I heard it the first time, I thought, oh, I guess that makes sense. I had never heard it before because nobody says it that way. So it makes sense. But if you wanted to say it within, so not just I'm going to take the exam, but I'm going to really try, I would say it exactly how Danny said it. Like, I'm going to really do the TOEIC exam. I'm going to try the TOEIC exam. But it still feels better in my case. I would say I'm going to take the TOEIC exam.
I'm going to take, or if you really wanted to emphasize that you want to like do really well, there's a lot of slang ways. Like you could say, I'm going to kill the exam. Or I'm going to kill it. I'm going to slay it. But to challenge it sounds awkward.
It does. How about you, Steve? What's your take on this?
Well, I completely agree with the other two teachers. I guess if I wanted to look at challenge a different way, you could say, I want the challenge of a marathon this year. Like you're really challenging yourself, you're bringing on something that you're trying to tackle and accomplish. But again,
tackle is a good word.
I wouldn't probably Again, I'm hesitant to say it's wrong because I understand exactly what it means, but it might actually be grammatically incorrect. The challenge, like I said, the very first thing I think Danny said, the challenge, I want the challenge of a marathon, or challenge myself to a marathon. But when I say challenge and then an object, I think of a person, like I'm going to challenge you to a game of tennis, challenge you to a game of chess. Challenging the marathon, because it's an inanimate object, it sounds kind of strange to me.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the tackle word. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
And in Japanese, the word, so this is why this word challenge is used a lot, is because the word challenge is actually used in the Japanese language. Challenge is how they use it. And they would say, I would challenge the marathon, or challenge the TOEIC test. So it's a direct translation of what they're saying in Japanese into English that makes this a bit strange when you hear it as a native speaker. The meaning behind it is typically like you're trying something. Typically, you're trying something new for the first time, is like when you challenge something in Japanese. So tackle is a good word, I think. Trying something out, like I'm challenging myself to a TOEIC exam. But yeah, I think what you guys mentioned are all great points. You challenge yourself. You're not challenging the marathon. You're not like in a fight with a marathon or anything like that, right? Okay. All right. Well, this is actually pretty fun. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, this is totally.
Okay, I still got a couple more here. Okay, this is another one that I hear, and I always chuckle a little bit when I hear this sentence. You guys could tell me what your thoughts are. All right, are you guys ready? Drummer, please. Okay, here we go. Oh, hold on. All right, you guys can probably read that. Here we go. All right, so the next sentence is, my boss scolded me.
That one, yes.
Scolded me today. So I hear this every now and then, and I think we all get it. I think we all understand what they're trying to say, but what do you think, Chris?
Scolded is a word that I associate very specifically for a mother or a parent, very much a mother or a grandparent, talking to a child when there is a problem and they have done something wrong. That's maybe a pet, like maybe also a pet, like a dog or a cat, but not necessarily. It's really, for me, mother to child, father to child. That's it. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
How about you, Danny?
Same, completely. Yeah, like and I know that perhaps the hierarchy is a little bit more intense in Japan, but you still wouldn't say that with two adults. Like sometimes my students will be like, my wife scolded me, and I was like, no, I don't think that you should use that word. But yeah, exactly what Chris said.
Because it gives that feeling of, if an adult scolds another adult, then you automatically assume that one adult is like child. That's the impression.
Exactly. That's right.
How about you, Steve?
Well, I can see there being a hierarchy difference between your boss and you. But you are both adults, so a word like reprimand or chewed out would be say more than scolded.
Chewed out.
Yeah. I like tongue lashing too. And on top of it, even the word scold, even for parents, like I don't think a lot of people use that a lot anymore.
I actually hear it now as to describe people, like if you're criticizing someone who's quick to criticize others, you might call that person a scold. You use it as a noun, actually.
A scold.
A woke scold is someone who like.
Woke scold.
Oh no, it's like the worst.
Yeah, but I totally agree with Danny too. Like, I feel like it's just a word that I don't really hear that often, and I heard it more around my students. My association really is with a parent, like an older figure, maybe scolding their child, but it still sounds like really intense, when somebody is scolding a child. And when you have two adults talking about one scolding the other, it just
doesn't work.
It just
doesn't.
It
uncomfortable for the listener. The
It
listener
does.
feels comfortable.
Yeah. It's like, who is that boss? Right? So yeah, how would you guys rephrase this? I think, Steve said my boss chewed me out today. I think that's a great idiom right there. Reprimanded me might be another one. Any other words that maybe come to mind?
What I would normally say, and this is why tone is so important, if I had been in that position, I would say, my boss talked to me today.
I had a talking to. Like that too.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the tone here is what really tells the story. And then when we use the verb talked or had a talking to, then feel it.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I can think of one instance where I might actually say my boss scolded me today. And that's where I'm kind of making fun of my boss. I say, he overreacted. Like I'm talking to my wife or my friends and, oh, my boss scolded me today because he overreacted to something I did or blew it out of proportion.
That's a good point. Yes.
All right. So maybe as a joke or an overreaction, scold may work, but maybe it's a word that you want to try to stay away from, guys. Okay, let's see here. You know what? Let's go with one more. I do have a couple. I want to make sure I give you guys enough time. By the way, do you guys have any sentences that you guys want to share? We have 15 minutes. I want to make sure that if you guys do have any, I do give you guys enough time because it's a 45-minute session today.
I have one or two words. I don't have any sentences. I just have one word in particular.
All right, well, I'll just do one more sentence and then we'll move on to that. And if you have some time at the end, I'll just list some things here. Okay, so this is kind of this happens a little bit in Japan too. I feel more Japanese people are getting better with this, but I still hear it sometimes. Okay, so here's the situation. Your friend went to a restaurant, the customer service was terrible, and he decided to take action. So this is what he did right here. He claimed about poor customer service. I'm assuming you guys can kind of understand what is going on here.
And the noun claimer, I remember that one.
Claimer is another one, yeah. All right, well, since you're on it, Chris, your thoughts on this sentence?
I learned this when I was living in Chiba, that claim or claimer is used, it functions as complain, either officially or directly to the management. And unfortunately, from what I remember, it's usually somebody who wants to get some kind of refund, like money back, or they want free stuff, or they want to cause trouble to get a prize out of it. Is how I learned it. Is that true? Is that what it means?
The claimer kind of has that image to it for sure. They are like looking to get something in return. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so how would you say this sentence here then?
I complained about their poor, I don't know. Do you guys say poor service? I sometimes say it. But
I would just say service because if you complained, it already implies that something is wrong.
True.
Exactly.
So I would drop that.
Let's complain about their service then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Poor is technically grammatically correct.
Yes.
Poor service. But this is another example of when most people will use incorrect grammar because it sounds more natural, and I'd say bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to chime in on this? Steve?
Actually, I'd never heard this word claimed and used this way before, so that's new to me. So I'm glad I learned something here. But yeah, I think if I was to say it, I complained. Yeah, complained about the service. Again, I probably wouldn't say poor, but if you ever look at like a survey, it never says bad. It would say like poor, average, good. And so I can see why you might say poor, but it's not something I would probably say. I complained about this.
Gentler than saying bad service.
Bad. They're awful service.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the word claim in English, it's like you said it, but it doesn't mean it's true. So that it has that feeling to it too. Well, you claim it was bad, but was it?
Yeah.
Was it really
That's
bad?
true.
You know? Yeah.
All right. I do have a couple more, but I want to make sure I give you guys enough time to share any words or sentences that you guys have come across. I think Chris, you said you had a couple words, right?
I have one in particular that always comes up on Hapa Buddies and then also in other lessons is the word quarrel.
Yes.
Yes. As the noun and as the verb. And I always tell my students, actually, I own, again, similar to by foot, on foot, I'm expecting a fairy tale, a journey, a story in the olden times, very old, where I would hear quarrel used. Whereas more often than not, we usually say argue.
Yeah, or even fight, right? Like even if it's not a physical one.
Exactly, because fight can mean physical and verbal. So depending on the context, we could say either fight or argue. So, okay, you guys have experienced that one too then, quarrel.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Okay, let me just write it down so people who are watching it could see it, but I'm assuming this is the word right here. This is a hard word for the Japanese students to pronounce. It's R and the L all combined together.
They could just drop it. They don't ever need to use that word.
So it might make you sound like a smart person, but it's one of those words where it'll make you sound like you're trying too hard, I guess, to sound smart, right? Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. So argue, right, instead of a quarrel is probably a better replacement there. Okay. Anybody else, or do you have anything else, Chris? Or sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Well, again, not anything specific. It's just the ed ending versus ing ending. I'm excited versus exciting. So just the fact that people and feelings end in the ed. How you're feeling? I'm excited, or I was bored, as opposed to things being boring or exciting. So I find students often mix that up, like I was exciting, or the movie was bored, or whatever. So just trying to keep those two straight can be an issue.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I think when you're a native speaker, as soon as you hear it, it's something that you like notice right away. I'm bored versus like I'm boring. When you hear somebody say like I'm boring, you're like no, you are not a boring person. You are bored, and you feel the tendency to correct. But yeah, it's got to be tough. Yeah. Okay. How about you, Danny?
I have a few. How much time do I have?
We got about 10 minutes.
Okay, I have a few. Okay, so this is a big one. When someone thinks that something is not something, they'll be like, I think they don't need to do this, or I think it's not this. Like, but that sounds really unnatural in English. If you think something is not in the negative, it's I don't think that it is. So I don't think they should do that, or I don't think you need to stand in line, not the other way, where I think you don't need to. So that's one. The other one is I noticed that a lot of people, they'll tell me like, oh, what did you do on the weekend? They'll be like, I cleaned my room. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but they'll be like, I cleaned my room. And then after like years of teaching, I was like, are you talking about your whole apartment? Because in English, it's literally our bedroom, right? And then I saw like this vlog, because I know some rooms or some apartments are literally one room, but I noticed that my students were using that word even for houses. Like I cleaned my house, they'll say I cleaned my room, but in English, when we say room alone, it's bedroom. And then one is like when people talk about colors, they'll be like, oh, it's gray color, right? Or like, oh yeah, like my phone is black color. The only time that we actually use the word color after is if we're implying that we know there's different types of this color. Like for example, especially girls, we can differentiate colors like peach. There's different kinds of peaches, right? So if we say, oh, I love this peach color on you, we're kind of, it's like that underlying message that I know that there's many different kinds of peach, but this particular peach color is nice. But anything else, you don't have to use the word color. It's like, it's blue, it's black, it's red. You don't have to say color after. And then one more thing, sorry. Okay,
No,
a lot of people will put their adverbs before the subject. So they'll be like, just I did this, or just I wanted to go here. Or they might be, finally, I did that. But it just sounds a little bit more natural if you say, I just did this, or I finally did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the ones I wanted to cover. Thanks for your patience.
No, those are all great ones right there. The color one for sure. I hear that a lot. That's also a direct translation from Japanese to English too. It's a blue color is how you would say it in Japanese. Ao iro, midori iro, aka iro. And you can just say the color itself, but there's definitely that translation part right there.
Oh, okay. Got it.
All right. We do have a little bit of time. What I will do is yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw it on Hapa Buddies, but I thought it was an interesting post that Kesuke put up. So, you know what? I would love to hear your thought on it. He had a post about sneakers versus tennis shoes. Did you guys see that one?
Oh, no,
No.
but no.
Okay. So do you refer to, or do you call them sneakers, or do you call them tennis shoes? Are they the same thing? Are they different? Is it a regional thing?
They're different to me.
They're different. Okay. How are they different?
Sneakers are the shoes that I wear when I go running, where I am, they are specific shoes. They're usually a little bit bigger. They have more cushion, more softness, and they're specifically for sports or athletics. And tennis shoes, not necessarily Converse, but flat, not much support. I usually imagine them as white and narrow and flat. That's how I imagine them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. For me, I call like sneakers.
I think it kind of, oh, sorry, please.
Oh, okay, sorry. Like what you were mentioning, Chris, I call them runners. Like if you're at the gym
Really?
or like jogging, I call them runners. Yeah, I call them runners. I don't, not many people in Vancouver, I don't think we use sneakers. And then tennis shoes, we definitely don't use. We'd be like, oh, are you like part of a country club or something?
Wow!
Yeah. Yeah. So tennis shoes is like, I know what you're talking about, but I just call those like flat shoes. But I don't know if I'm just weird.
Wow.
It's like flat shoes, like walking shoes. Yeah, but runners.
Runners.
Mm-hmm.
Runners or flat
Have
shoes.
you guys not? That might be a total like Northwest Coast thing. Really?
Even when I lived in Seattle, I had never heard of runners before.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, no, it's a Canadian thing, I guess.
Yeah, I've never heard of runners or flat shoes either, actually. I don't really think I really hear that too often
That
here
just
in
might
LA.
be me. The
So,
flat.
yeah. Well, if you're British, you call them trainers. And so that's
Oh, yeah.
Trainers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of this more as kind of a regional thing. Just where I live, the big debate is it pop? Is it soda? Because I live in like on the border of Missouri, and it's like the Missouri River. If you live on one side, you call it soda. If you live on the other side, a mile away, you call it pop. And so it's just a regional difference, I think. And then some places, I know they call it Coke, no matter what it is. So any type of carbonated beverage is a Coke, depending on. So I think of this as kind of a regional thing. So me personally, if I heard sneakers seems really outdated to me, but if I was to use the word, I would use it interchangeably with tennis shoes and trainers. However, I agree with everyone else. Runners is unheard of. Sorry, Dan.
Runners.
Well, I mean, Danny, even on Hapa Buddies, I think it was like 2 days ago, I asked you, how do you call these?
Oh, I call those earphones.
Or earbuds, right?
I've heard earbuds. I just call these and these. They're both headphones.
I'm Chris on that.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the earphone is like from your actual phone, that like little.
Oh, that's so weird. No. Yeah,
Oh, no. Yeah. Definitely
So
not for
cool.
me either. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But you know, LA and Vancouver has a lot like in common in terms of most of the things will say the same, except for runners, apparently.
Well, on that, like LA, and it just might be a thing that I say with my friends, but in terms of like maybe tennis shoes, I don't really say tennis shoes or sneakers for that matter. When I'm with my friends, I guess kicks is a word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, do you guys use that word at all? Yeah, like nice
I
kicks.
use it
Where you
like
get those
if
kicks
I'm
from?
joking, like, oh, those are nice kicks, but I don't use it myself. I use it as a joke if I use it
As
at
a
all.
joke, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Steve? Kicks?
Yeah,
is
I know
that-
what it means. I'm probably 30 years old, too old to say that. I think I was trying to be hip and cool by saying it, but I definitely know what it means.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like really interesting though, just depending on where you live, right? I think the words that are used are very different. Pop is obviously not a word that we use here in Los Angeles. Typically soda is a word that comes up a lot. But I mean, people know what pop is. It just sounds very like Southern or like the Midwesternish area, I guess.
We
people
say
here.
pop. Yeah.
Oh, we say pop, really?
Yeah, we say pop. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But it might
Everywhere
be different in Canada too. Sorry?
Oh, okay. Everywhere I've ever lived, Boston, Seattle, Washington, D.C., it's always soda. So that's interesting.
Oh.
Yeah.
I keep missing it.
Yeah. Is there anywhere that combines the two and calls it a soda pop?
Soda pop,
Right?
yeah,
Soda
I've
pop is a
heard
word
that.
too, right?
That sounds really like old, like 1950s type.
Like from Archie comics, like the Archie comics from the 50s, they probably
Oh,
say soda pop. I love Archie comics. Yeah.
Well, guys, you know what? I think we'll probably have to come to an end here. We'll wrap it up. But, on this note, I think what we can maybe possibly do on our next one, because it was so much fun to end with, is just maybe try to come up with like our own regional expressions and see, if we each other understand what those words are. Obviously, California, Canada, Boston, and Kansas. So, I think these are all just like great regions to compare different expressions. So if you like, maybe could compile a list of like different words you use in conversation next time, and maybe use it in a sentence and see if you can understand what.
so fun.
I want to
Yeah, that
mention
would be really fun.
there's a website. It gives you a quiz based on like 20 questions. Says, do you call it this, or this? And it tells you where you live. And
Oh, nice.
it got me right. It knew exactly. I mean, within like kind of the area. So it's kind of fun that you can program this in to tell where someone lives just based on this dozen or so words, how they use it.
Yeah. So maybe that'll be our next symposium together.
Yeah,
do
that would
another
be
one.
really fun.
So fun.
All right. So before we wrap it up, first of all, to everybody watching today, I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation that we had. Again, the sentences that I introduced today, it's not every Japanese person uses it. It's just a thing, just sentences that I typically see with my students. And I think you guys kind of, understood from our conversation today that it's not wrong, right? I mean, you're totally understood by saying it, just as Americans, there are just more, conversational ways of saying it that will make you sound a little bit more natural. So hopefully you guys found this interesting. We're going to move on to the next session, which is going to be we're going to break into individual groups like last time. Hopefully, if you get lucky, you'll get one of us in your groups and we'll get to chat for about 20 minutes. And for everybody who's watching this on YouTube right now, thank you guys for joining in today. This is a part of Hapa Buddies right here. And these three teachers, these three amazing teachers, I should say, Chris, Danny, and Steve are all part of Hapa Buddies. They post some really fun educational lessons on the buddies a couple of times a week. And we try to do, these get-togethers once a month on Zoom just to kind of chat and, just have a good time because teaching on screen and talking like this is a little bit different, right? So if you're on, YouTube and, Hapa Buddies, it's a Hapa英会話community. If it's something that you guys are interested in, you can try it out for 500 yen for 1 month. If you sign up today, I think you get the whole month of July for 500 yen. So come and check it out and come and join us because, come on, we're cool. We're pretty cool people, right? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Chris, Steve, and Danny. Thank you, guys, and hope to see you guys again next on the next one. We'll talk about our slang that we use in our regions.
Mhm.
So
All right. Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.